What's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday. Welcome to another episode of Facemask Fantasy. Appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out tonight. I am actually keeping tabs on my setup and my connection. I am trying to stream directly through YouTube because it is the easiest way. I've been having some issues with it previously, which is why I've been going through Zoom, but I tested it earlier and I wasn't having any issues, so hopefully that's the case tonight. And then we're not having any problems. But by all means, as you're coming in, if you're coming in and out, let me know if you're having any problems or if you're having any issues. And what I can do is shut this down and boot it back up through Zoom, which is what I've been doing the past couple of, or throughout the start of the season so far. I did have an issue with it on Tuesday. The stream shut down automatically without me doing anything. So I decided to try to give directly through YouTube another shot. So if there are any connection issues, if you're hearing me on a delay or if it's lagging or if there's tech problems, please let me know. If the experience is poor, I will shut this down and I'll boot back up through Zoom. It's just been a bit longer of a process. And after a malfunction earlier in the week, I decided to try to give YouTube another shot, streaming directly through YouTube, giving that another chance. Tested it earlier. It seemed like it was fine. So please let me know if you're having any issues or if I'm having any issues that is causing a poor experience. Hopefully that's not the case, though. We've got Thursday Night Football. What's going on, Alex? Good to see you. Between the Giants and the 49ers, on paper, this doesn't look like it's going to be a necessarily exciting game. Even when fully healthy, the Giants are not on the same level as the 49ers as far as the build-up, the makeup of the team and the expectations for the season. This is a 49ers team with a ton of talent and a Giants team with less talent than the 49ers. On top of that, Saquon Barkley, Andrew Thomas, both ruled out for the Giants. Their starting left guard is also out. So in addition to the Giants not having their best offensive playmaker in Saquon, half their offensive line or the entire left side of their offensive line is also going to miss this game. So it's looking real shoddy for the Giants on offense. On the other side of the ball, the 49ers will be without Brandon Ayuk, or he is at least unlikely to go at this point. He hasn't officially been ruled out, but by all accounts, he's not going to play tonight. Every report indicates that the 49ers will err on the side of caution. And so he will not go for the 49ers. Makes sense given that, to be quite honest, especially given how decimated New York is on the offensive side of the ball. They probably feel like they don't need to push Brandon Ayuk through this game. They should have this in hand regardless. And so they'll err on the side of caution, let Brandon Ayuk rest, get him ready for week 4 and beyond. The last I looked, the line was at around, it started as Giants plus 10. It's possible that line has moved even further. And I bring this up because this could severely impact, it's 10.5. This could just severely impact game flow and expectations that we can have for players in this game. And so if you have players going tonight, obviously it's an easy call to sit Saquon, or obviously it's an easy call to sit Ayuk because he's in all likelihood not going to go anyway. You're obviously already moving off of Saquon, of course. But if you are between certain players, we can, of course, go over that. Ayuk does not need to be in the start-sit conversation this week. He's an easy sit. Even if he is a surprise active for this game at this point, it doesn't feel like that's going to be the case. Regardless, I would sit him even if he was a surprise active. we'll fire up Brandon Ayuk again in the 49ers week 4 contest in 10 days. I expect the 49ers to run a lot. If you play in deep leagues, really deep leagues, Elijah Mitchell is in play tonight. Jordan Mason is in play tonight. Um, Elijah Mitchell is probably the favorite. I tend to want to believe that Jordan Mason could usurp him, could usurp Elijah Mitchell, but he might be the one who gets a decent amount of run tonight on a short week, especially if this game is in hand for the 49ers, midway through the third quarter. We might start to see them kind of mix in other guys, other players on the depth chart, which is a common trend for teams on a short week, Uh, so with Brock Purdy, I'm only starting him in super flex leagues, and honestly, if you have another viable option, you probably want to pivot to that. Uh, this could be a game where he's just handing the ball off from halftime on. Um, is a 2-touchdown performance in the cards? Absolutely. And that'll get the job done in super flex leagues. But there's a cap to his ceiling this week, just because of how much is expected of what he's gonna have to do, and it's probably not gonna be that much. And plus down one of his high end options in Ayuk, that drives the ceiling down even further. So not necessarily looking at him, especially in DFS. That's you'd much rather go on the side of Daniel Jones, who is way more likely to turn the ball over than Purdy, but the volume is in his favor. I expect a lot of pass attempts from the Giants tonight. I don't expect them to run the ball that much or even try to run the ball that much. They don't have great options with Saquon not in this game against a brutal front seven in San Francisco on a short week. I imagine they throw the ball a ton. Short passes will be an extension, will be a pseudo variation of their run game tonight. I would imagine a lot of dropbacks for Daniel Jones, a lot of pass attempts, a lot of short, quick throws. Darren Waller comes to mind. And with all of the slot receivers that they have on that roster, I would expect a lot of them to be utilized, rotate in and out. And lots of short dink and dunk stuff, even though that's not a great recipe for success in today's NFL. It's probably something that the Giants want to look to lean on. So Daniel Jones is the guy that you want in DFS tonight. I would say not Purdy. Um, Waller looks good for some volume, even though he's consistently volatile. And then, I guess like a Darius Slayton is probably a fine. I mean, I guess I would call it a Hail Mary, so to speak, emergency situation in deeper leagues. And in DFS, probably a fair bet tonight with the Giants and what I expect to be a heavy volume of pass attempts. And for the 49ers, I would expect all their running backs to get involved tonight. McCaffrey, you're firing up in all, certainly in season-long formats, probably in DFS, although he's going to be heavily owned, heavily rostered. I think, one of Elijah Mitchell or Jordan Mason will be a strong plug and play in DFS lineups tonight. I just expect the 49ers to run the ball a ton. Debo's probably going to be crazy expensive in DFS formats. Rightfully so. Brandon Ayuk, probably not going to play. That's what, 13 targets over the first 2 games of the season. So lots of work freed up there. I think that number is accurate. 14 targets, excuse me. I was off by 1. So Debo's going to be expensive. Uh, you would think they utilize him in that wide back role tonight, maybe a little bit more frequently early on as they try to manage a short week. McCaffrey's going to get what you would expect, but maybe there's a little bit more rotation early on in the game to keep him fresh. This is why I can't stand these Thursday night games. It's like you're probably looking at a situation where even the studs are gonna get more breathers, more time off in between plays than you would normally expect. So if you play DFS, give me Daniel Jones, give me the running backs for the 49ers, give me Darren Waller, and then, you could take a shot on like a Darius Slayton, at least as one of your wide receivers. Debo's going to be heavily owned. McCaffrey's going to be heavily owned. Waller's going to be heavily owned. It's a fickle game. Let's see, Alex. You were offered. You said, okay, this is for something that's before the game. You were offered Purdy and Tank. I like Tank Dell. Miles and plus Kamara plus Miles Sanders for the second worst team's projected 102. No, no, I wouldn't do that. I mean, that's a lot of capital. That's a lot of pieces, which is nice. But I'm out on Miles Sanders I've been out on Miles Sanders in the offseason, and I'm not really much more in on him now. I'm not more in on him at all, actually. I'm not optimistic about Miles Sanders. I don't like his situation. I don't like the change of scenery was a severe downgrade for him going from Philly's offensive line to Carolina's offensive line and their situation, breaking in a rookie quarterback. I know Bryce Young's not going to play this week, but all in all, not a fan of that situation. Kamara looks like a good piece. That's just a name right now. But in Dynasty, after this year, you really start to wonder where Alvin Kamara's value is at. His efficiency fell off a cliff last year. It should be better this year. He should be better this year because, in theory, the offense should continue to improve with Derek Carr. Even though Derek Carr has not been very good specifically in the red zone. He's been all right outside the red zone, but inside the red zone this year, Carr has kind of been a disaster. So, does a 27, 28-year-old Alvin Kamara with all of the tread on his tires that he is carrying, does he improve the situation that significantly? Maybe some. And then after this year, I mean, now you gave up the 102 for a guy who is going to be 29 years old next year. And is this the last year? It's not the last year of his contract. But there is a potential out that the Saints have next year. They're probably not going to take it. It's still a dead cap hit of almost 17 million. So he will be on the team next year. But a 29-year-old running back, I mean, he's closer to the end than he is to the beginning. I would rather have the 102. Tank Dell is having a nice start to his career, and at this point, you can kind of hope like, okay, is this guy like a wide receiver 4 rest of season? Like, cool, nice, awesome. And then Purdy's a QB2 and super flex. That 102 has a chance to be a real difference maker. It's probably Drake May. Do I want to trade? Or, if you're loaded at quarterback, it could just be Marvin Harrison Jr. Do I want to trade Purdy, Tank Dell, Kamara, and Miles Sanders for the right to get either Drake May or Marvin Harrison Jr.? I don't think so. I don't think so. I would just keep the 102. I would just keep the 102. Yeah, let them play Purdy tonight. Purdy's not I do not think Purdy's going to put up big numbers tonight. Not that we're playing this game on a week to week basis when it comes to dynasty, but I mean, you would be acquiring him right ahead of a game where his ceiling is probably as capped as it can be this year. On a short week, they're expected to roll. The spread is 10.5. They're going to run the ball a ton tonight, most likely. He's down Brandon Ayuk, Purdy is. I mean, and this isn't all to say that I think this is like, oh, Brock Purdy's going to have a bad game. I just don't think he's going to need to do that much tonight. The 49ers are head and shoulders ahead above the New York Giants. If this is a competitive game in the third quarter, I will be a little surprised. Yes, it's the NFL. Yes, this is like professional talent, best of the best on every roster, but the 49ers are objectively a better football team than the New York Giants, who just 4 days ago were losing by 4 touchdowns to Arizona at halftime. I know they came back and won that game, but the fact that they needed such a monumental comeback against a team like Arizona, to me, it is like good for the offense getting it done, but holy hell, that's not acceptable. And now they got to play the 49ers, the second straight road game, this one on a short week. I mean, I just don't think the 49ers are going to have to they should be able to handle their business tonight. And for me, it's like when you couple that with Brandon Ayuk likely sitting, I just don't think Purdy's going to have huge numbers tonight in a 49ers win because he's not going to need to. He's not going to need to put up big numbers. So, on top of that, on top of everything every factor going into that trade, there's another thing, again, in dynasty, week to week value is not going to fluctuate that much, but I do think there's a better chance than not that Purdy takes a bit of a ding tonight as far as week to week feelings and expectations go because he's not going to need to do a lot. You know what I mean? So I would let him keep Purdy. I would let him keep that collection. Um, I would hold on to the 102. I would hold on to the 102. Hawkinson and Swift for Kelsey. Yeah, I guess Alex brings up a good point because Alex tried to help the question. If I assume this is redraft, I don't think this is dynasty. If it is, let me know. If it's redraft, depends on your running back depth. How heavily, or I guess I don't know which side you're getting. I don't know what side you're getting. I need to know what side you're getting, and if you're getting the Kelsey side, then what running backs are you left with if you're giving up Swift? I need to know which side you're on. You got offered T. Higgins and Kenneth Walker for CeeDee Lamb in full PPR. Yeah, I would probably do that because I know what CD is. Don't get it twisted. CD is excellent, but I mean, T. Higgins is just a tier below, and you're picking up Walker, who, when healthy, is the clear starter. There's no committee right now with him and Zach Charbonnet, and I guess that could change over the course of the season as Charbonnet continues to gain NFL experience on a week to week basis. But I mean, why go away if you're the Seahawks? Why go away that much from Ken Walker? Like, yes, and Walker's volatile, right? Because he's on the injury report kind of consistently. Um, so it's a little dicey. He would offer Debo instead of Higgins. I think I would. Well, that's interesting because Higgins' value is currently a little dependent on not a little dependent. I mean, every wide receiver is dependent on quarterback play. Higgins, of course, is now attached to a hobbled Joe Burrow. We don't think this is like a long-term issue with Burrow, but it is a re-injury, a re-aggravation of an injury he suffered in the offseason with the calf. I think I would take like tentatively, I might have to think about this a bit before giving like a more definitive answer, but I think I would take Higgins and Walker for CD Lamb. If I'm getting Higgins and Walker, I think I would probably take that. Walker's volatile for sure. He's on the injury report a lot. Um, and so that makes him, it makes it feel a little concerning, but he's the clear starter for Seattle for certainly right now. And so on an offense that wants to run the ball in Seattle, Pete Carroll historically wants to run the football. I tentatively would, um, unless your running back depth is absolutely stellar. Like if Walker's going to be your RB 4 or 5, which is probably not the case, um, then maybe you have no need for him. But if you've only got like 2 running backs that you feel good about, and you want to add another guy to your rotation, I would probably take that deal. We might have to be a little bit patient with Higgins for a little while Joe Burrow gets healthy from this calf injury, which we have to keep an eye on. But long term, I would probably take it. I would probably take Higgins and Walker. I would probably take Higgins and Walker. Alex, Flowers and Addison for the 102. That one's interesting. If you can get both of those guys, and you don't have a glaring need at quarterback, then that might be worth it. If you can get Flowers and Addison, that might be worth it. That might be worth it because those are two 2023 first round picks, right? And they were probably drafted in like the 106, 107, 108 range, right? In your league. So if you're taking both of those guys for this year's 102, that seems that's fairer. That's fairer than, those two old running backs. Tank Dell's looks like a good young player, but he was a third round pick in the dynasty drafts that ran over the course of the off season. He's on a nice little run here right now, which is great for Tank Dell. I'm happy for Tank Dell. He looks like a good player. He's going to stick, but how high is his ceiling? We still don't, and I do say that with some guard, like keeping my guard up, some pessimism. I don't want to get too high, because he's going to stay behind Nico Collins on the depth chart, and it's not inconceivable that the Texans in the next year or two to try to really help CJ Stroud move along is they add a wide receiver with either through a trade or with the utilization of a high pick, a first round pick or a high second round pick. And so, how long is Tank Dell going to have value for? He looks like he belongs in a wide receiver core. He belongs in a a regular rotation in the NFL. But will he get usurped before too long for a player with higher draft capital? We have to be mindful of that with wide receivers that are drafted, third round or later. But if you can get Flowers and Addison for the 102, that I feel better about. And that's something that you can certainly justify. What's up, Kaunoe? Between ETN and Jacobs for rest of season, I have to still say Josh Jacobs, even though it's been a bad start. The usage is there. The volume is there. He is handling bell cow snaps and touches for the Raiders. It hasn't produced results yet, but there's nobody behind him that is taking too many snaps or touches away from Josh Jacobs. It's a higher probability that happens to Travis Etienne. Just taking a look. Jacobs in the first two games saw a snap share of 80% and 73%. 21 touches week 1. 14 touches week 2 in a blowout. And in these types of they were getting absolutely crushed, the Raiders were. Jacobs getting 14 touches in a game that was out of hand is a good indicator that he's not, he's not going anywhere. He's not ceding work. Now, Etienne had a great week 1, and his snap percentage has been there as well. But the pass catching work is still very blah with Travis Etienne. He caught 2 for 2 yards this past week. And I know the whole offense was bad, but he already didn't catch the ball a ton last year relative to what I think we were expecting. And then this happens. Etienne is still a very good option where if you have him, you are firing him up each week. But I would rather have Josh Jacobs. Yes, it's a worse team. Yes, it's a worse team with the Raiders than it is in Jacksonville, but Jacobs, I think, is going to continue to see the volume. The usage is there. There aren't as many, there isn't as big of a threat in the Raiders' backfield to vulture touches. I would say Jacobs, even though it's kind of gross. It has been gross so far, but I would rather have Jacobs. Okay, let's see. You're trying to get Kelsey. You have Eckler and you have the Chargers backfield and you have Joe Mixon. You'd be giving up Swift and Hawkinson to get Kelsey. I don't know that I would do that. I know what Kelsey is, and I know what he brings to the table. But but your running back depth is hurting a little bit. I guess I'll fire off with one final question. What are the running backs available on the waiver wire? If you can rattle me off a few names of running back names on the waiver wire, and if there's a couple names that jump out to me that stand out to me, then sure, you can fire off and try to get Kelsey. It feels like a lot right now giving up Hawkinson and Swift because they both are coming off huge games. But I mean, it is Travis Kelsey we're talking about. I don't want to entirely rule him out as far as acquiring him, just to trying to exhaust all avenues here. Rattle off some names on the waiver wire, running backs on the waiver wire. As far as the Trayvon Diggs news, first of all, it sucks. It sucks for him. It sucks that it happened in practice. He was off to a spectacular start. But that's over now. He's a big part of what they do. He's a big part of what they do, and he's a huge loss for that defense. But they should still be an elite unit overall. You're still firing them up this week in fantasy against Arizona, no question. You'd be firing up Dallas even if they didn't have Michael Parsons against Arizona. But you're firing up the Cowboys against Arizona, and you're firing them up moving forward, I would say, for at least the next few weeks. They've proven to be too complete of a unit. And yes, Trayvon Diggs is a significant loss. It's a huge loss. He's one of the best corners in the NFL and was having, another top 5 or 10 season, at least top 10, closer to top 5 start to the season so far. He's a huge loss, but they do have Stephon Gilmore already. And it's is it Bland, their slot corner? He was pretty good for them last year as a rookie. I don't know if there's a Cowboys fan in here who can. I think it's Bland is their nickel corner. He should probably be able to slide to the outside. He played pretty well for them last year. I would imagine, he can fill in okay. Whoever's going to fill in at the slot, the nickel corner for them, that's going to be the key. I think it's Bland is their nickel corner, and he was a rookie last year, and he played pretty well. So they have the depth. They have the depth to be able to, weather this storm. And they still have a ton of talent all over the defense as it is. So they are still elite. Yes, they lost one of their best players. And so that is a huge hit. And it makes things harder on them for sure. But this is still an elite unit. The Cowboys still have a top 3 defense in the NFL. With Trayvon Diggs, it's probably, you could say top 1. It's just first. When you lose a player of his magnitude, they're still top 3, but sure, they are down a peg or two. Nevertheless, in fantasy, in all formats where you have to start a defense, you're firing them up still, especially this week against Arizona. What's going on, Iron? Good to see you, man. Let's see. What else do we have here? The score tonight, I do think that the Giants can keep this close-ish. We have to keep in mind these are professional. When we see big spreads, right? 49ers 10.5. Like the Giants are, Giants are getting 10.5 points. That's a big spread. It's hard for NFL teams to win by 10. Or in this case, they would have to win by 11 to cover. And on a short week, you're just naturally, I know that there were lots of points scored last week on Thursday Night Football, but you're just naturally inclined to feel like it's going to be a lower output for both offenses on a short week. So low scoring game, 49ers win. I'd be willing to go out on a limb and say that the Giants are they are close to covering. I don't think they're going to lose by 3 scores. I don't think they're going to this is not going to be, 30-7. 35-14, whatever. I don't think it's going to be a complete blowout. I would say it's somewhere in the range of outcomes of like Giants, or excuse me, 49ers, maybe like 23, Giants, say like 14-ish, 15, like 15, maybe they go for two. We see more weird scores in the NFL than we've traditionally done. You can't just say like, oh, 28-20 or 27-21 as a final. Like teams go for two more frequently. So I don't know, like a 23-15 type of score. 49ers win. Maybe the Giants make it a little uncomfortable, but ultimately the 49ers keep this game in hand. They run the ball with success with McCaffrey, and they mix in Elijah Mitchell, maybe even Jordan Mason tonight. Daniel Jones is going to throw the ball a lot. I don't think the Giants are going to have a ton of success running the football. No Saquon, no left side of their offensive line. I don't think they're going to have a lot of success running the ball tonight. I would not play Matt Breida in any format. Gary Brightwell, who's the other guy that they have? There's another name I'm forgetting. Forgive me. I'm not confident in these guys to be able to get anything going, given the patchwork situation on the left side of the Giants line and the opponent. So I like a 23-15-ish, somewhere around there. Yeah, 20. Yeah, like something like that. Some weird. The 49ers should be able to get 23-4. You've got 26. They should be able to get in that range of outcomes. And I would imagine the Giants can get 2 touchdowns worth of points somewhere in that 14-15 range. So, yeah, sounds about right. Sounds about right. Iron, if you have Eckler, I would be preparing to pull him from the flex and put him on the bench. It sounds like Austin Eckler's going to miss one more week. I don't think he didn't practice today. He didn't practice yesterday. This is probably another week of Josh Kelly. It's a big game for the Chargers too. They need to win. You can't start the season 0-3 when you share a division with Patrick Mahomes. That's essentially a death knell in your season. Yeah, still not practicing is Austin Eckler. It's going to be another week of Joshua Kelly, who is a fine roll of the dice in deeper leagues. It's not a tough matchup going up against Minnesota. I did not like Joshua Kelly last week going against the Titans. He was a sit for me. He's a sneaky start in deeper leagues this week. It's a much softer matchup against the Minnesota Vikings. But if you have Eckler, I think we're hoping to see him in week 4. I don't think we see him this week. Should you start Purdy over Fields? I would not. Look, we can get into Chicago's situation because it is one of the talking points of this week because they are a dumpster fire right now. Make no mistake. Sorry to Bears fans, but that's the reality. The Bears are a mess. And it's at this point, the slander is warranted with Chicago, and the concern with Justin Fields is warranted. 100%. It is fair to ask, should I start Justin Fields this week? They just lost their left tackle, possibly for the season. The offensive line is already playing really bad. Now their starting left tackle is on IR. Going to miss a minimum of 4 games, and by all accounts, it sounds like it's going to be longer than that. By the way, fire up the Chiefs defense if they're still on waivers. Fire up the Chiefs defense this week. They might still be on waivers. Get them now while you still can if they are out there, because that's their opponent this week. There's a lot of downside into Justin Fields, to the point where somebody like Brock Purdy is worthy of consideration over him. I would not do it for the simple thought process that we drafted. I know a lot can change in a short amount of time once the NFL season kicks off, but we drafted Justin Fields as a top 7 quarterback with the hopes that he would be able to deliver the goods in the form of running the football. Through 2 games, he has 4 designed runs called up for him. So, once again, Justin Fields is still the victim of coaching malpractice. Now, Justin Fields also might unfortunately not be that good. I had high hopes for him coming into the NFL. When I saw him perform against Clemson in the college football playoff in his final win as a starter for Ohio State, I, for myself, declared right then and there, I thought Justin Fields is going to be good in the NFL. Maybe he's not a star, but he's going to be good. And he's going to be fun, and he's going to be electric. We haven't seen that so far. And I don't know that he right now has the chops to actually see and dissect an NFL defense, know what it is that he's looking at, and trust what he sees in front of him on the field. I don't know that he can do any of this. Right now, he's not showing any examples that he can. But I am giving him one more chance. Even in one quarterback leagues, I am giving him one more chance this week. I understand if people don't want to. If you want to pivot to Brock Purdy, I understand the concern with Justin Fields. I will also tell you, I think that Brock Purdy's ceiling is not that high tonight. I think they're going to have plenty of success running the football. He's down Brandon Ayuk by all accounts. Ayuk hasn't officially been ruled out yet, but it is expected that he will not play. So he's down his main, honestly, I think it's fair to say Ayuk might be Purdy's favorite target. And that's with Deebo Samuel and George Kittle in the lineup. I think Ayuk might be Brock Purdy's favorite target. The only reason he didn't have a big game last week was because the reason he's out tonight. He got hurt. He picked up a shoulder injury during the game, early in the game, and so he was in and out of the rotation throughout the rest of Sunday's game against the Rams. Purdy's down his favorite target. He still has great weapons to work with, but he might not be needed tonight. I think 2 touchdowns is his ceiling. And so for me, when it's between Fields and Purdy, I'm going to roll the dice on Fields one more time, even though he's at his lowest point. If anything else, you're playing the Kansas City Chiefs. You're the Chicago Bears. You're going on the road. You're playing the Kansas City Chiefs. Nobody, not even the biggest Bears fan in the world, nobody expects you to win this game. Nobody expects you to, I don't know that there's many people that expect this game to be much of a contest. I'm going to ride the fact that Fields can use this, and I don't know that he will, but this is a thing with athletes. Use this as motivation. Use this to, shut up some doubters. Kansas City might be feeling themselves a little bit. I still expect them to win this game handedly, but teams get caught, they can get caught sleeping in the NFL too, looking down on inferior opponents, because that's what the situation is. I think this is you got to pull out all the stops if you're Chicago. You're not going to win. You might as well, say fuck it and just throw the kitchen sink at them, throw everything out the book as far as here's what we think we should do versus we have a freak athlete at quarterback. Let's let him do his thing. If you were ever going to actually let that play out, this is the week. This is the week for that to happen. And so while Fields is at his lowest point, I'm still firing him up one more week, one more time. And let's see what he can do in a situation where everyone is counting him out against a defense that should have success, but also maybe we finally see them just kind of say, screw it as far as the original game plan, and let's go nuts. Try every random thing in the book that you can because we are playing a team that is far superior to us in Kansas City. Let's pull out all the stops. Let's draw up those designed runs that everybody expected from Chicago's offense coming into the season. Uh, I think Fields, maybe the stat line isn't spectacular this week. I would still expect Kansas City forces at least a turnover or two with a big lead, but Fields should scramble more. I'm banking that this is a week where they do draw up more designed runs. They play to the strengths of their great athlete of a quarterback, because if they don't, then what's the point of even showing up? Kansas City will beat you by 3 scores, maybe more. I'll roll in one quarterback formats. If I'm between Justin Fields and Brock Purdy, I will roll with Fields for one more week. I'll roll with Fields for one more week. Brandon Ayuk has officially been ruled out. So get him out of your lineups, everybody. If he's not already, put him in that IR spot. Go ahead and pick somebody else up. And again, this is why I'm like the fact that Purdy is out, that Ayuk is out, I'm a little more hesitant on firing up Purdy unless it's super flex and I have no other clear-cut QB2 to turn to. I just think his ceiling is capped tonight in a game where I just don't think he's going to have to do that much. If y'all will excuse me, I have to put Brandon Ayuk on IR in a league so that I can pick up a stash. Sleeper does a really poor job. They're great. They're a great app, but they do a poor job. Like, if he's out, then mark him out on the website. You have to like refresh a couple times to actually see it happen. What's going on, Fortune? Good to see you, man. Between Njoku and Henry, I'm probably going. I advised against Hunter Henry last week. I probably just go back to the well with Hunter Henry. I probably just go back to the well with Hunter Henry. Njoku has not done a ton. 4 catches, 48 yards last week. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Of course, he coughed up the fumble. And so that's very not good. We saw his usage improve last week on Monday night in a tough matchup. So that's good. But Hunter Henry has just outplayed him the first couple weeks of the season thus far. Plus, the matchup is way better. Tennessee is a little more stingy defending the tight end than the Jets are. For as good as the Jets are, they are giving up production to tight ends. Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox both had decent nights opening night. Now, of course, that's Josh Allen throwing them the football. But Josh Allen did not have a good game that night. So, take that for whatever it's worth. And then last week, the Jets gave up a score to Jake Ferguson. And did they give up a score to the Cowboys' other tight end? I don't recall. They gave up at least one touchdown to Ferguson. So the Jets have given up some decent production to tight ends the first 2 weeks, whereas Tennessee really hasn't. I would go with Hunter Henry. And I would just ride that. Wave. It's hard to predict, it's hard to project touchdowns every week, especially for volatile tight ends, but Henry's done it 2 straight weeks. The usage is clearly there. He was on the field for 92% of the snaps last week. He's got at least 6 targets through the first 2 games. I mean, the volume is there, the production is there for Hunter Henry. I would go Henry. And sorry, Iron, I missed your question about Trayvon Diggs. Yeah, so I did get this question a little earlier. It will have an impact on the Cowboys defense, but they are still a top 3 unit that you are firing up every single week without question. Maybe if they were like on the road against Miami, who looks great on offense right now, or on the road in Kansas City, uh, just like an absolute, there's no question about it. This is a bad spot on paper for any team. Maybe you bench them in those situations, but that's about it. You're firing them up in every other week, pretty much no matter the matchup. It hurts. Trayvon Diggs was having a great season for the Cowboys, great start to the season for the Cowboys. Um, he's one of the best players on that defense. So, yeah, it hurts, but they are loaded. They are loaded, and they should be able to weather this storm because of the talent that they have. You're still firing them up with confidence. Still firing him up with confidence. Is Sky Moore droppable, Fortune? I don't think so. I mean, he caught a touchdown last week. Kadarius Toney is still not, is he still not practicing? I mean, no, I don't think he's droppable. I think if anything, I think his value went up. He was a wide receiver he was like a wide receiver. He was the wide receiver 25 last week in half PPR. So, the highest wide receiver 3 that you can go. I mean, there's value there. He's going to be inconsistent. He's probably going to be a pain in the ass, but I don't think you drop him outright. He's going to be a pain in the ass to roster all season, but it's a thin, pecking order catching passes from the best quarterback in the NFL. It's frustrating, but there's value there. So you're kind of hedging, but I don't think right now he's a drop. If he had another bad week, if he had a carbon copy week 2 that he had week 1, then you're probably not even asking me the question. You probably just already have dropped him at this point. But he had a much better week 2. And so I think you have to hang on to him for one more week, especially while Kadarius Toney continues to pop up on the injury report. So I would hold on to him for at least one more week. If he has another bad week this week, and then that's 2 out of 3 weeks, okay, fine. But I would hold for one more week. All right, sleeper made Brandon Ayuk ruled out, so I got to put him on IR. I have a player in mind that is available in my league that I want to grab, and so I will do that. Done. Let's see. What else do I have here? Would I take, trade question. Roshan, Waddle, and Olave for Pollard, Dotson, and Sean Tucker. I mean, the Olave Waddle side. I guess if, Pollard is the most valuable, Pollard's the most valuable player in this trade, right? He's a top 3. Right now, we have to project him as a top 3 running back rest of season. It's him, Christian McCaffrey, and Bijan Robinson. It's those 3 guys. So he's the most valuable player here. But Olave and Waddle were drafted as low-end wide receiver 1s. And so far, Olave hasn't disappointed. Waddle has been a little quiet, but we're not panicking on Jalen Waddle. He might not play this week because of the concussion, but long-term, we're not panicking on Jalen Waddle. This is a high-flying electric Dolphins offense. He's a big reason why. And Roshan's value is up. His stock is up. He's still an RB3. and is probably not getting started in he's certainly not being he's not startable in 10-team leagues, and he's probably not startable in 12-team leagues either. But the arrow's pointing up on Roshan Johnson. Um, the arrow's down right now on Dotson and Sean Tucker is just a throw in at this point. Unless Pollard is like the only thing I have at running back, and I got a bunch of ragtag options on my bench that I'm cycling through and choosing, you know, the best of a bad bunch week to week as my RB2, and giving up Pollard would screw my running back depth because I don't have any. Unless that's my situation, give me those wide receivers. If I have a couple of RB2s that I feel okay about and I'm getting those two wide receivers, I would probably prefer the Olave side. I'd probably prefer the Olave side. Would I sit Pickens and Najee for Addison and Gus Edwards? I mean, you got to get Addison into your lineup. You that guy, he looks great. I would say we got to find a way to get Addison into your lineup. If it's at Pickens' expense, that certainly makes it a bit of a tougher sell. Like if Pickens is the one who has to go to the bench because you're starting Addison, that is tough. But I would start Addison. As far as Edwards over Najee, I don't think I am there just yet. Najee has not been good. Najee hasn't been good. But we have to keep in mind he has had two, and don't get it twisted. I was slandering him on Monday night, at least to myself, along with everybody else. But this is about as good as a matchup as he could ask for all season. The Raiders are not good against running backs. Like James Cook shredded them last week, and I know that the Bills' offense is on another level compared to the Steelers. But this is a good matchup for Najee, who, when you do look at it, has not been like the worst from a I guess a yards per carry perspective. From an analytics perspective, he continues to look awful, but he got 10 carries for 43 yards on Monday night. Not very good. And the only reason the numbers looked that good was because he ripped off two decent runs, which counts for something. And week one, I think he had something like 6 carries for 51 yards, something like that, which is good in a game that got out of hand and got away from Pittsburgh pretty quickly. Gus Edwards had a nice game last week against Houston. He has a tougher test this week. The Colts defense is better than the Texans defense. I would probably go Najee, and then it hurts at Pickens' expense, but I would go Addison over Pickens. Addison looks really good. Addison looks really good. So I would sit Pickens for Addison, but I would start Najee for Gus. Yep. Addison and Najee. A couple trade questions. Give up ETN and Garrett Wilson for Gibbs and Ridley. I mean, you're probably not going to get that. You can try. Same with the other one, Bijan and I mean, you can try. I would not accept either one, and I would say not close. Just because Garrett Wilson, I know he had a nice catch and run for a score last week. That's awesome, but I mean, Zach Wilson still stinks, and it's hard to feel good about Garrett Wilson for the rest of the season. I can't imagine moving him for a guy like Calvin Ridley, and I can't imagine being able to move him for Bijan right now, who looks like a top 3 running back. You can try, go for it. I mean, if somebody really likes Garrett Wilson and is willing to give you Gibbs and Ridley, I mean, sure. I would prefer to unload Garrett Wilson personally, and if it means I have to give up ETN as well to do it to get a package like one of those two, then fine, sure. I wouldn't accept it. I don't want I don't want Garrett Wilson in a trade. Um, but maybe somebody else does. I mean, yeah, always attempt it. If you're thinking that there's something that you want to try to do, always attempt it. I don't know if somebody's going to say yes to it, but you can at least try for sure. And yeah, hell, if you can get Bijan straight up for both of those guys, like take Jacoby Myers out of it, like fine, sure. If you, I can't imagine you're going to get it though. I can't imagine you're going to get it. Bijan looks like Bijan looks like a top 3 running back, and I'll leave it at that. He looks awesome. He looks awesome. Just jumping down. Fortune's got another question. Just taking care of my members. How long do I think Akers is a hold? For a while. For a while. This is a great spot for him. I know it was gross week 1, 22 carries, 29 yards. That is barf city. But this is about as good of a landing spot for Akers that we could have asked for. Alexander Mattison has not been getting it done. And I know I don't hold week 2 against him too much. Short week on the road against that Eagles defense. I wouldn't like any running back in that situation. I would be lowering expectations significantly for damn near every running back in that situation. But the fact remains, Madison has not done a ton, and he hasn't looked very good either. Akers could, I mean, they just traded capital in this day and age. That's significant for any running back. And I know it's just like a 7th for a 6th 3 years from now, but the Vikings made the call that they want to try to upgrade their backfield, and this is how they do it. I wouldn't be surprised. It might take a couple weeks, but Akers should usurp Madison as the 1A. Madison is much more effective as a 1B. Now, that might be a pain in the ass of a backfield rest of season, but Akers gained value with this landing spot, in my opinion. Now, is he actually going to play well? I don't know. Remember, he's coming off of an Achilles injury from a couple of years ago. Achilles injuries have proven to be injuries that sap an athlete's, athleticism. And so there is a bit of concern from that perspective, but this is a great landing spot for him. And if he is able to round into form a little bit as the season progresses, he could re-enter starting lineups for fantasy. So yeah, no, he's a hold for, I would say, a month at least. Certainly a couple of weeks, but I would say around a month he's a hold. Expect next to nothing this week in his first game with the team. Be patient with him next week too. It's only going to be his first full week with the Vikings. And then by his 3rd or 4th week, I think we're going to have some type of indication of what we can maybe expect from Cam Akers moving forward. I am being patient with him if he's on my roster. I am being patient with him. I would not, I would leave him on the bench for 2 more weeks, and we'll reassess by week, say, 6 or 7. Let's see where we're at. Speaking of the other Vikings running back, Alexander Mattison, you were offered Mattison for Hunter Henry. Who's your other tight end? I need some context there. Who's your other tight end? As far as tonight, I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I mean, I guess I wouldn't be overly surprised. I don't think it's going to be a 20, 21 point blowout, but hey, take your shots, right? Take your shots at the you know, take your shots at the board. Fire those darts. See what happens. Never know. You were offered Chase for Debo? Shit, man, take that. take that. You were offered Jamar Chase for Debo Samuel. No disrespect to Debo Samuel. I really like Debo Samuel, but take that. Someone's offering you Jamar Chase straight up for Debo Samuel. Take that. This is the perfect time to buy Jamar Chase when everybody's got questions about Joe Burrow's calf and the Bengals have been kind of sloppy on offense to start the season. Take that. I will roll the dice on Jamar Chase. I don't care how, less than stellar the Bengals have been so far. Take that. Take that and run. Take that and run. You were offered Travis Etienne, A.J. Brown, and Hopkins for Pollard. Is that Garrett Wilson and Jacoby Myers? It's not bad. It's not bad. So you would be getting Etienne to just looking at the running backs. You would lose Pollard, who is a top 3 running back for the rest of the season. It's McCaffrey, it's Pollard, and it's Bijan. Those are the 3. That's my top 3 those are my top 3 running backs right now. Christian McCaffrey, Tony Pollard, Bijan Robinson. So if you have one of those 3, it's gonna be hard for me to pull the trigger on moving any one of those. However, the rest of your team, you have Jahmyr Gibbs, who I still have high expectations for. You have Kyren Williams, which is a great rest of season hold that you got for free. Khalil Herbert, or unless that's Justin Herbert. That's probably Justin Herbert. So you trade Pollard, you're going to be down to Etienne, Gibbs, and Kyren Williams. But you would be gaining A.J. Brown and adding him to Olave. And I would probably say right now Nico Collins is your starter over Judy and over Hollywood. Etienne, Gibbs, and Kyren as your backfield moving forward instead of Pollard. I'm inclined to say no. It's a good like AJ Brown and ETN. It's a good package. Hopkins, unfortunately, Hopkins doesn't do a ton for me at this point in his career. He is struggling to get open. Plus, he's already picked up an injury. He's already got an ankle injury. So Hopkins doesn't do much for me. Might actually prefer to have Jacoby Myers. I think I say no. The only reason I say no is because Tony Pollard for the rest of the season right now today is a top 5 running back. Or excuse me, a top 3 running back. Regardless of format. The top 3 are McCaffrey, Pollard, and Bijan. Whatever order you want to put them in. I guess McCaffrey's first. And then it's, personal preference. Bijan could be second. Pollard could be second. For me, it's hard to move off of a guy who I think right now is a top 3 running back. It's hard for me to move off a guy like that. And I still got a couple sit questions in here. Happy to do that because it is Thursday. I do encourage you guys, though, if you have sit questions, come back on the weekend, Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern, Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern, just in case. Friday practice reports, You never know what random injury might get picked up between now. I mean, just again, I hate to bring it up, and just look at Trayvon Diggs. You never know what's going to happen. I do encourage you guys to come back Saturday and Sunday with start sit questions, but I can, now that we've got at least 2 days worth of practice reports to work with, I can tentatively give answers here. But if you can make it for one of the weekend streams, I do encourage that. Okay. And if it's Thursday, no, if it involves Thursday night players, then it makes sense to ask them now. Between Waller, Kittle, or McLaurin, I mean, Waller's got some volume appeal tonight, but also it's a bad matchup. Kittle's got a little bit more appeal tonight because Ayuk is out. But it could be kind of random who actually comes through in the form of production this week for the 49ers. And then you've got Terry in a matchup against Tre'Davious White at home, and that's a tough spot. Although Terry McLaurin had a tough matchup last week against Patrick Surtain, and he came through with a score. I think I'm inclined, if your options are one of those tight ends or Terry, I lean Terry slightly. It's razor thin. It's really close. But I tend to opt for receivers over tight ends when given the choice. And I know that Waller and Kittle are higher end options as far as tight ends go. Waller should see some more volume tonight. He also might be asked to try to block a little bit more, to stay in and block a little bit more tonight, because the Giants are missing the entire left side of their offensive line. Both of those guys are out tonight. So, Waller could see 10 targets. He could be smoke and mirrors and see 5 targets because he's blocking more frequently than not. I lean Terry slightly because I have question marks I have enough questions about the tight ends where I'm willing to take a shot on Terry, who is at home in a matchup where the Bills are dangerous on offense. Washington should be able to play aggressive at home, and Howell and McLaurin connected for a long score last week. It's razor thin. It's really close. It's possible that their production is all very similar. I would slightly lean Terry McLaurin. Slightly lean Terry McLaurin. Let's see what else we have here. Do you drop Freiermuth for Ertz? Sure. Yeah, sure. Ertz has had some decent involvement. And Arizona's probably going to be throwing the ball a ton this week. Freiermuth does have a good matchup this week. But Ertz, I think, is in a better spot. Has been a little bit more consistent. And I imagine he draws his fair share of targets in a game where the Cardinals will be trailing against Dallas. So, sure. Yeah, you can pick up Ertz for Freiermuth. And I would start Drake London if it's full PPR. He came back to life last week. I like Josh Kelly in this matchup against Minnesota, but if it's full PPR, then I'm going to prefer London. I'll take the 6'4", big body wide receiver in a dome, still playing in a dome just because they're on the road. It's familiar conditions for the Falcons since they always play in a dome at home. I'll take London. He should have a fair share of red zone his fair share of red zone targets throughout the season because the Falcons are running the ball very effectively. They should be able to sustain drives this year with the way that they are able to run the ball. And that should set up for red zone targets for guys like Drake London. So I'll take London. Offered Hunter Henry and Jahan Dotson for Chris Godwin. That's not bad. That's not bad. I mean, if you need a tight end, I don't know if you in dire straits at tight end, because if you are, then yeah, sure. You can do that deal. But if you've got a guy, if you've got a bona fide option at tight end and Hunter Henry is just a backup, it's Njoku. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you can do that deal. I like Chris Godwin a lot. I do. Um, I like Godwin a lot, but I still believe in. I do still believe in Dotson. Hunter Henry's off to a strong start. I do think Godwin is the best player in this deal. I still think Godwin is the best player in this deal. So from that perspective, if you don't want to give up the best player, I understand. If you're in, I mean, it's hard to say, but among these three, who has the best quarterback? It's Mac Jones, Sam Howell, and Baker Mayfield. I'm not sure. Howell's off to a Howell had a better week too. Baker's off to a good start. Yeah, that's tough. Njoku has the Tennessee Titans this week. Henry has the Jets this week, who are allowing a good amount of production to tight ends, but obviously a trade is for the season, not just looking ahead to one week. I guess ultimately Godwin is the best player here, so maybe I actually have some pause on this one. Godwin is the best player in this deal, and so all right. Ultimately, maybe now that I think about it a little bit, maybe I say no. I'll keep the best player in the trade. I'll keep the best player. Njoku didn't have I mean, he would have had a fine stat line if he didn't fumble the damn ball, and that's just not something that we project for pass catchers that frequently. So, um, I would maybe hold, and especially with Nick Chubb going down for the rest of the season, those short and intermediate throws, a few more could go Njoku's way. I guess I would hold. Man, this is we're bargain hunting here on this running back question. Who to start between Spears, Kareem Hunt, and Craig Reynolds? I guess Reynolds, assuming Montgomery is out, which I think he will be. I guess. I like Spears, but it's a tough spot against Cleveland on the road. And then Kareem just got there. Spears, change of pace guy in a game where the Titans might be throwing the ball a little bit more than they normally would want to on the road against Cleveland. Reynolds should be a bit of a plotter at home against the Falcons if they don't give Gibbs more work, which they should just do that. And then Kareem Hunt, this is first game back. I don't know that I trust it. I would say, I guess Spears is your safe play, and maybe Craig Reynolds falls into the end zone a couple of times on the 1 yard line. So maybe that's like the all or nothing play. I guess I would go Spears if it's full PPR. He's the guy who's getting the third down snaps. I guess I would go Spears. Um, and then among those wide receivers, as much as I like Drake London and I was happy to see him come back to earth last week, I would probably go Addison. I mean, he's been more consistent. He's got scores in his first 2 games, and he's at home against the Chargers. Nothing scary about that matchup. I like Addison this year. I really do because because opposing defenses are never going to be able to key on him. You have to key on Justin Jefferson. Like Jordan Addison should see one-on-one coverage all season long, and through 2 weeks, he's had success. I would go Addison. I would go Addison over London. I would. Yeah. So Tajay Spears and Jordan Addison. All right. I think I got everybody's question. So I'm going to shut this down here in the next couple of minutes. Appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out today. I am pretty sure that there were no connection issues. It seems like it. Nobody called anything out as far as like a lag on my end or any bad audio. I've had some issues streaming directly through YouTube, and that's why I hadn't used them recently. So didn't see anybody say anything about connection issues. So very happy to hear that. This is obviously easier to schedule and set up as opposed to trying to schedule it on the fly and set it up on the fly through Zoom. Makes the first couple minutes a little bit quiet because I'm like working on getting it set up. So I think we're all good from a connection perspective. So happy to see that. Again, appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out. If you have any other questions that come up after the fact, you can hit the Discord. Second link in the description of this video if you're not already a part of the Discord. I do try to get to my members first in there, and I will give my members a little bit more of a thought process or a drawn out, I guess, answer to maybe what they're looking for as far as analysis. But it is free to anybody to join if you are interested and if you're not over there already. I will be back again this weekend. You guys already know. Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern. For start sit help. So be sure to tune in if you have any other questions of guys of the year between over the course of the weekend. We'll be sure to talk shop then. And then let me just check to make sure I have the chat before I wrap this up. Traded Christian Kirk for Cam Akers. Yeah, I guess I'd rather have Kirk, but you're feeling better about Akers because, well, first you got the backfield, so I guess that sort of helps. But Akers, this landing spot, I think is good for him. I don't think it's great for Alexander Mattison unless Cam Akers gets hurt. Akers' value went up. I will admit, I think I would have rather. Kirk is tough to trust. He's been usurped in a big way by Calvin Ridley as the number one option. I know Kirk had the better game this past week, but I do think more weeks than not, it's going to be Calvin Ridley. So I guess I'd slightly prefer Kirk there, but running back depth is running back depth, and Akers got a big boost with this trade. So all is not lost. If anything, Akers, this is probably about as good of a situation as you could have asked for, all things considered. Not a bad spot. And then last question before I go. I can't believe we're here, but between Zach Ertz and Kyle Pitts, I guess I would go Ertz. It's dire straits for Kyle Pitts. He got out targeted by Jonnu Smith last week. I can't stand that the Falcons are the team that drafted Kyle Pitts because they choose not to use him as a pass catcher, and his usage will continue to be sporadic and frustrating. So I guess I would go Ertz. That's where we're at. Until we see otherwise from Kyle Pitts. I still believe in the talent, but I don't believe in his situation. And that's what it comes down to. I'm at time. Appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out today. Again, tune in for the weekend streams if you can to get more start sit help. Otherwise, thank you. Appreciate the time. Thanks for coming in and hanging out. Enjoy the game tonight. I will see you guys this weekend. Thanks, everybody.